Do I regret becoming a mechanical engineer? Are there things about the field that I wish I had known about before embarking on this journey? My graduation from mechanical engineering was followed by a 5-month job search. I was very excited when it ended, and then I found out that the job I got involved a lot of grunt work that I didn't need a degree for. I found out that this is pretty common. Although I have since transitioned into a more technical role that I'm more excited about, where I use my brain and overall I enjoy it, it has led me to see a lot of the differences between engineering school and what some of the common engineering jobs are actually like. Today, I'd like to talk to you about this. Before we begin, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel to learn about engineering careers and how to be successful in them. So after I graduated from mechanical engineering, I had a 5-month job search, and the job that I finally got involved a lot of grunt work. It wasn't actually technical work that I thought that my degree had prepared me for and that I could actually make use of. And it honestly didn't even really involve that high of skill level of anything. And I found this to be pretty common. I now have an idea of what various engineering jobs are really like, whether it be one like that was a little bit more grunt work, which we'll get into, versus if it is one that actually does require more technical work or developing actual skills, hard skills, soft skills. And so we're going to talk about what various engineering jobs are actually like. And so that particular first job that I got out of college, it was a process engineer in the quality department of a metallurgical foundry. And in case you don't know what a metallurgical foundry is, it's basically a place where they perform casting processes. So picture them melting a bunch of metal, pouring it into a mold so that the metal forms into a specific shape for whatever function it needs. So this was quality control in a place like that. And so I came in believing it would be a decent amount of technical work because they required an engineering degree. And even though I had heard in a lot of cases, like, it's not going to always be technical work, there's administration in there, but that was what I expected, is that it would seem there was a reason from a day-to-day perspective why they were requiring an engineering degree. And it just seemed like all of my work was quite menial, and I could have done it without a degree. I was doing a lot of audits of processes where I was walking around comparing what was being done to what was in work instructions or procedures. There was a lot of quality paperwork. There was a lot of updating procedures and work instructions to be what management wanted them to currently be. And this is really common specifically in quality control positions. And I mean, quality control positions might be a bit more technical or a bit more challenging and things that are more high-tech than quality engineering. Like if you work for a medical company doing pacemakers, there might be a lot more to it. So maybe that is something to keep in mind. But yeah, this was a job that I just found intuitively seemed like a bit of a dead end. Whether I was right about that or not is a different question. But that was kind of what my tasks were in that particular job. And so I was worried that after this long job search that I had that seemed hopeless finally came to an end, but then this job that I got, I wondered if it was going to get me anywhere in my career. Like the next time I had to search for a job, whether because I wanted to or whether because I had to, employers would ask me all these questions that I was used to being asked and grilling me, and it's like I can't really tell them that I have this high level of technical experience, or I can't tell them that I really developed a strong amount of skills in my previous position. And so I had the 5 months of experiencing how picky employers are, and so I was just very worried about this, which, I mean, in retrospect, I don't know, maybe I was overthinking it, maybe I worry more than I should, maybe a lot of engineers could relate to that, but I would, in retrospect, having experienced job markets and having experienced roles, like, there was at least some degree of validity to these concerns, because you do get pigeonholed after doing the same thing for a long time, and especially if you can't really show a high degree of technical competency in something. Like, there aren't really that many employers that are going to pay you to look at processes for casting metal. I mean, you may be able to translate this kind of experience to process auditing for other industries. Like, that would probably work pretty well. But yeah, so that was something I was worried about. And if we think about other kinds of jobs, and so jobs in general that are more miscellaneous, in this case, what I mean by that is miscellaneous, meaning they're not directly related to mechanical engineering or necessarily any degree. They're just kind of engineering roles that they want someone with an engineering degree for. So quality engineering, I would say, falls under that category. It's an engineering job that will hire mechanical engineers, other kinds of engineers, and often similar situation, other positions, like you'll see positions for sales engineers or manufacturing engineers, field application engineers. Manufacturing engineers specifically might be pretty similar to what I had experienced, although it's a similar situation with, depending on how high tech the thing that's being manufactured is. Well, semiconductors, there's some technical nuance to that manufacturing, or like the aerospace industry, have a lot of nuances with the technicalities of certain processes. And it's not to say that the metallurgical foundry wasn't technical, but I think because it was so simple, there wasn't much versatility to it. You were pretty much dealing with metals and temperatures of molten metal, temperatures of solid metal at room temperature or above room temperature. So that's why maybe my experience was a bit less technical overall than perhaps other manufacturing engineers. But then there's also things like sales engineers. They want you to be able to speak the language of whatever it is you're selling, and maybe similar situation depending on the technicalities of whatever you're selling. And field application engineers helping the customer to implement the product for their own solutions. And so, like any of these jobs, it may or may not be a bad thing, but I think it seems that most engineers are looking to develop a skill set and work fulfilling and engaging jobs. And so this is where it's important to do research on all these different kinds of jobs and prepare in advance to be able to be competitive in the market so that you can get something that is fulfilling and engaging, whether it's directly utilizing the skills you learned in college or not. I mean, I think most engineering jobs are not going to directly use necessarily what you learned in college, but if you want something that you are going to be immersed in it, engaged, fulfilled by it, like that's the kind of stuff you are going to have to compete for by doing internships and research and involvement in clubs early in advance to be competitive for these higher quality jobs that you're going to develop good skills and have a fulfilling career path in. So let's talk about where I've been since. I found my way into the aerospace industry and worked a few positions. Mechanical design and analysis, like those are quite technical and do use a decent amount of what you learned in college. And at certain phases of the program, you will have more administrative type roles that don't seem fulfilling, at least at first. It really depends on the phase of the program. Like, for instance, if you work at Boeing on a 737 aircraft, like they've been building those for decades, like since the mid-20th century. So a lot of that probably would be more paperwork, menial tasks, or just tasks that are more administrative, not as technical. Whereas if you're doing more of something that's in the early phase of development, like a new version of a hypersonic jet, or if Boeing were to make a new wide-body aircraft or something to replace the 737, then that would be very technical because you have to put together a lot of designs and analyzing those designs and everything. But I also did work a systems engineering job, which is kind of like engineering and product management combined, and that does end up being a lot more administrative work, which depends a lot on the situation. Sometimes it's engaging, you're communicating with a lot of departments, and that is a lot of times the case, but in some cases dealing with more like requirements and stuff. But yes, it's the same stuff that I had touched on, where it's the technical work in aerospace during flight, making sure it's not going to break. Programs past the development phase, there's a lot of stress on this, and supporting integration and test operations. So this is going to, once past the development phase in a program, you're going to deal with a lot more like interacting with people and more administration stuff in that case. Systems engineering kind of touched on this a bit. It's jack of all trades, technical project management. So it's a lot of coordinating, and sometimes, in my experience, at the beginning, there is quite a bit of dealing with requirements and stuff. One thing to consider is that systems engineering is considered to be a fast-growing career field. And so, like, whether or not nuances of situations, things may or may not be super engaging and fulfilling, but it could be a good way into the field and a good way to have job security because it is something that's been expanding. And so for other kinds of mechanical engineering positions in the medical device industry, in a lot of industries, there's going to be types of regulations. So you are going to be dealing with technical stuff, a lot of FDA requirements, and there's going to be some administration type of tasks depending on that. And similar thing with construction, but more following transportation department regulations and HVAC. From what I've heard from someone doing this kind of job, is not a ton of analysis, not a ton of structural analysis for it, because more like pipes, fittings, there's a lot of pre-existing ways of assembling things that are approved and are considered to be structurally sound and work properly. So not going to be directly utilizing a lot of that stuff, but I could see it being pretty fulfilling and engaging if for the right person. And also like all of these industries have similar miscellaneous positions as mentioned earlier, like sales and processes and quality. Like every industry is going to have stuff like that. It just depends on the kind, depending on the industry. So that's what we've got for today. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button. And good luck with everything. Talk soon.